All right, thanks for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. We are talking population census. Nigeria is expected to go into census, a head count of its citizens by 2018. There is no presidential proclamation to that yet, but that is the expectation Nigerians are having in their minds. And we have joining us an economic strategist and also an author, Babatunde Raimi, joining us right now. But let's break this down for better understanding first before we get into. Now, a population census is a head count of the citizens of a nation, taking into consideration their distribution and demographic, social and economic characteristics. Now, some of the demographic characteristics include sex, age, marital status, religion, language, ethnicity, among others.
Now, this helps in economic and, economic development, as a matter of fact. Now, census is conducted in a society for even distribution of national resources, and it provides governments with demographic data for planning purposes. Now, census helps identify population problems created as a result of trends and levels in condition or living conditions to develop appropriate population policies. We'll get into all of that even further, but let's bring in our guest right now to let's begin this way. Now, accurate, reliable and acceptable census. For some reason, this has defied all efforts during past, censuses that Nigeria has had. But that is a foundation on which any kind of economic development can actually take off. Why has it been such a complex thing for us over the years?
Thank you very much. In my opinion, I feel, first and foremost, proper prior planning prevents poor performance.
Say that again.
Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. You don't become an Olympic champion, for instance, when you start training for Olympics, maybe 1 year to maybe a boxing competition. I think we have not come out of the fire brigade approach, where we have something coming up and, we start to rush in doing things. So that's one of the places where we miss it. For instance, in South Africa, I'm aware that there's a budget yearly for census. They have a budget yearly for census, such that when census, it's time for their census properly, which is supposed to be every 10 years according to international standard. They don't start running for funds. We are looking for this money. We can't do this. So I think it hinges on proper planning. When we get our planning right, because the process of every endeavor in life is more important than the goal.
All right, when we talk about proper planning, because you have really hammered on that so far as you started, what are the kind of plans that should go? What are factors to be considered first when you're going into a census situation?
We are, as of 2006, the population was put at 120 million. As of today, projections have it as 170 million. So if you look at all these statistics that we've had before now, how do we ensure that from 2006, what have we been doing to ensure that by the time census comes proper, we are set for the census? What have we been putting in place in terms of planning? How have we been training our staffs? Is it that after census, we just go back to sleep? So when you look at, if we must make this 2018 census work, there are certain factors that we must consider. One of them is we need to look at the recruitment and training process.
Okay.
We need to look at recruitment and training, recruitment of all the facilitators, people that will be involved in the census process proper. You look at the ICT staffs, you look at the supervisors, the controllers, the coordinators, the drivers. You look at the local guys. And I'm more particular about the local guys because when you look at all these other people and to a large extent you push the local guys to the background, we might not have accurate data.
Okay, who are the local guys?
Local guys would be...
The local guys now, I'll give you an example, a vivid example. By the grace of God, Nigeria is winning the war against insurgency.
Yes.
The military couldn't have done it alone. You know, we now have what we call civilian joint task force. So these people now, they know the terrain, they know their people.
And some
The
vigilante.
foot soldiers?
The foot soldiers, you know, in civilian, whatever. So they know the terrain, they can tell their people, these are soldiers, these are our friends. Do you understand? So if we have that synergy, the foot soldiers, people from that locality, people from that local government, we need to partner with them and ensure that we incorporate them proper. Train them proper, you know, we begin to conduct something like a train the trainers program to ensure that we keep them up to date with current trends worldwide. I think with that, we'll be heading for a very good census and accurate census. That's just one of the points. I also want to say that for us to get the the census rights,
Yes.
we also need to maintain an up-to-date enumeration database. The key word here is up-to-date. You keep updating your data, you keep updating. If you go to the local level, for instance now, I'm talking about the local level at the NPC level, National Population Commission level, you realize that births are registered almost every time. When you ask, because I think it was Miles Monroe that said that without purpose, nothing should be done. Why do I really want to ensure that my child is duly registered? Is it to ensure that, okay, you are registered, you have added one to the population of Nigeria, or just, okay, if you don't have a birth certificate and the likes, you will not have access to some social, whatever, just like schooling and the like. But if, to a large extent, we can capture our birth rates, can we say the same for the death rates? Do you understand? Can we say the same for the death rate? How many deaths are really registered? Some of the people that cross the Great Divide, maybe on 3rd Mainland Bridge, how many of them really get registered? Somebody adjusts that, and if maybe some of the NPC staff comes to say, okay, let's go to them, you need to register death. If we register birth, we also need to register death. And you go to them, you'll be lucky to come out alive.
So in other words, when we say that census should happen every 10 years, it's not necessarily the head count itself that actually happens every 10 years. It means that the work, there must have been some work going on, registering of births and deaths, you know, like you said.
Yes.
How many people have been added to the population? A place like Lagos, for example, where we hear that 86 people come to Lagos every hour. Do we know how many people leave Lagos every hour? That's the question. So what is the work that needs to be done to ensure that when that 10-year or 10th year comes, then it becomes easy?
Well, like I've mentioned, I've talked about the training and retraining program.
Yes.
I also think that they should start the delineation process on time. We have a population of about 170 million. You know, if they start, just imagine where you stay, for instance, count 5 houses to the left, 5 houses to the right. You know, it's a rigorous task. So they need to start this process on time. When they start this process on time, that's one of the ways. Then also they should engage in a very robust partnership and advocacy program. For instance, we are no more in 1932 where we do things in a manual way. The world has gone virtual. If you go out there now, you see everybody, they have their earpiece, you know. Everybody, they are looking at their phones, they are in tune with current trends, current development. They should engage in, you know, a robust advocacy program. So, and partner with telecom companies, partner with bloggers, you know, you can't push them out of the equation. Partner with media houses like yours, partner with so many people to let people know that census is actually more than head count. There is more to census than head count. An average Nigerian just feels, okay, maybe it's just head count and, you know, a process of sharing the cake. No, there is more to census than cake sharing. And I'm saying that because, for instance, if you ask the youth, for instance, how many of you are satisfied with the current political setting in the nation? And somebody tells you, I'm not happy with the current political setting. This is one of the right time for you to get it right. So don't
and government is able to say, look, 40-something million women don't like what, you know, sometimes, Mike, when we watch the process of voting Donald Trump in, for example, and you hear analysts say, look, middle class women don't like this. You know, how many women, and you're amazed. Like,
there's a breakdown. There's a breakdown of African Americans, where they live, what they do. You know, there's also the breakdown of Asian American, Hispanics, and so on. Women, students, and all of that, where they are spread across, and which state has a larger population of this and a larger population of that.
Yeah.
What social phenomenon define these states, and so on. And all of these things are on ground. But we don't often hear that the United States, after every 10 years, goes into head counting each person, because the system is... Now, let me ask you... Oh, no, anyway, we have to go on a break now. Yeah. I said, but we'll come back to this anyway to dwell more on this. Now, we're going out on TVC Entertainment. The viewers there can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria, on Concert Channel 190 and DSTV Channel 418.
Yes, indeed, at Go TV 45 and ACTV 510. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're looking at the possibility of a census come 2018.
I like when you say the possibility.
Yes,
it's fine, because we have to wait for the president to come up with the proclamation.
It's been shifted a couple of times, and we're hoping that before the election year, that Nigerians will indeed know how many they are, and not just rely on projections. Today you hear 170 million. Another day you had 200 million. We really need to know the exact numbers. All right. Well, the United Nations recommends that a census be conducted every 10 years. Now, Nigeria has had 5 censuses since independence. Now, the 1962 census was annulled. After another exercise in 1963, Nigeria had another census 10 years later in 1973. The next census was held after 18 years in 1991.
And the last population and housing census conducted in Nigeria was after 15 years, and that was in 2006. Now, with a population of about 140,441,790 that time. States that led the pack according to the population are Kano, Lagos, Kaduna, Katsina, Oyo, Taraba, Ebonyi, Nasarawa, Bayelsa, and Abuja. FCT had the least population. Now, the previous censuses have been criticized for lacking enough coverage, conflicting claims of multiple counting, as well as the inflation of numbers by states in a bid to attract more social benefits and services based on larger numbers. These have distorted the outcome of past censuses and undermined its general acceptability.
Now, in Nigeria, the higher a state is in population, the more revenue allocation it receives from the federal government. I guess that explains why some states would want to up their figure. Now, the National Population Commission says there are plans to deploy modern technology for Nigeria's next census. Electronic data capture devices will be used to collect the photographs and biometrics. Also, only persons physically seen by the enumerators will be counted. Now, this will ensure all citizens are properly identified and reduce fraud.
All right. Now, and the National Population Commission is proposing 222 billion naira for the 2018 census, about 94 billion for pre-census stage preparation, 120 billion for the census itself, and more than 8 billion naira for the post-census stage. Wow, that's a big one there. Now, when we started, I and Ngozi were talking. Banks now have the BVNs, the bank verification numbers. Everyone who has an account, a bank account in Nigeria, has that. It was done free of charge. Every Nigerian that is of, at least most Nigerians who voted during the last election had their INEC or the PVC, which was done free of charge. Many Nigerians, certainly there are some of not voting age who did not have that, and some of the others. Then we have the NIMSI, the identification of NIMSI. What is NIMSI?
Okay, there you go.
Okay. The agency that registers that registers people for identity and all national identity management commission, as the case may be. Now, they did all that free of charge, and they were looking forward to getting every Nigerian on their database. Now, we're talking about census now. And why would it cost so much from your perspective? as much as 222 billion for an exercise like this?
You know, from your analysis, I also wonder why it should cost so much. Because we have a platform already. We have a database, we have a platform, and I want to believe that agencies share knowledge, they share information. So with all this, not supposed to be that costly. I want to assume that, you know, we have the National Assembly and the House of Rep, they are there for checks and balances. So I want to assume that before the money is finally released, they will go through this process. And our representatives will ask questions because we're in a questioning world.
Yeah.
It baffles me too, I'll tell you.
And of course, I mean, how do you explain the need to provide fresh facilities, equipment every time? Shouldn't there be some kind of situation where you maintain the equipment that you've used before? Well, if you say 10 years, maybe some would go totally out of the, you know, outdated and all of that. Maybe that explains these figures, you know, that we have. But Nigeria, it seems, has never been able to derive maximum benefits from any of the censuses that we've had. So what's the guarantee that come 2018, if the census really does go ahead, that Nigeria can stand to benefit?
Taking it from your first question, I think I'll answer it from two ways. I think that that we have to buy equipment every time, every other time, is a Nigerian thing. Is a Nigerian thing. Then secondly, I want to say that there are developments, you know, technological development every time. So we need to change with change. We need to be in tune with current development, and it is possible that they want to deploy, because I am aware that they are going to use you know, biometrics.
Yes.
You know, so I want to assume that they will use the latest technology in biometrics to ensure that we have our data right, so as to aid the planning process properly.
All right. The National Population Commission is talking about recruiting over 1 million people for this exercise, supervisors, coordinators, and all of that, enumerators, and all of that. Now, that's another huge challenge there. Can people be recruited? The process of recruiting and training and all of that, mastering all of this, and the delineation of the entire constituencies and breakage of all the entire country into manageable pieces before this time. What would it take?
I think they can manage that. I'm saying that because when principal officers are trained, they are sent to their various states. You know, they train the other officers who
train
go back
trainer
to train the trainer type of program, and they go back. This training continues every other time. This training continues every other time. And for a population of about 170 million, if we have a field force of about 1 million, I don't think it's too much in quotes, as long as it helps us to get the right result. Remember, Nigeria, to a large extent, in my opinion, is in recession because we failed to plan. We failed to plan because we don't have adequate data. Do you understand? We don't have data that we can refer to, believing that the past is the bedrock of the future. If you don't have the data that we have before, how do we work on future whatever? So with this, with getting our pension right now, I think is the first stage of coming out of recession.
Really? Okay, that's interesting to know. Now, the Senate has continually reminded the president that, look, this is a constitutionally provided job that you need to do. Every 10 years, you do a head count. Why is it that the president has not made any proclamation to that effect? And if he has not, can we really confidently say that we'll actually have a census in 2018?
This is a norm. This is a norm. It is done worldwide. So I don't see a major reason why the president has not assented to the whatever. And I strongly think it will hold, because the World Bank is interested in Nigeria's population. The European Union, they are interested in Nigerian population. United Nations, you know, various, and they are interested in Nigerian population. And this population, the population figures to a large extent determines where they channel certain resources per time. I'm talking about the support we get from our foreign partners, you know, the aid.
Donors.
Yes, because of the information available to them. It even helps government to know, okay, this is where we have to build more schools, this is where we have to build more roads. Okay, we need to focus more on our youth, you know. So I think it's something that should be done. Like I said before now, it's one of the major tools that will pull us out of recession, so it should be done.
Now, there are also concerns in some quarters. We cannot divorce politics from all of this. Now, it is the chairman of NPC, the National Population Commission, Dr. Eze Duri Ihoma. I understand he was from a PDP state, Imo State PDP chairman.
Yes.
And when you have things like this, there's bound to be some kind of, all right, he was a member of the opposition and so on. Issues like that, what impact would it have on going forward with a very straightforward census or call for census?
If a member of the opposition is invited to head such a sensitive commission, so I think you should know that the federal government, in quote, are trying to put square pegs in square holes, regardless of the political boundaries. So I think it's a laudable move by the federal government. And
but should we even allow it to be politicized beyond who is heading the commission, whether it is a Duri Ihoma or whoever? You find a situation like we said earlier. Some states want to actually claim that they are more than the other states and all of that, all because of that good old national cake that nobody seems to want to bake. Now, how can we extricate this census from all of these other factors so that we can actually have a reliable data that will help government in ensuring those basic amenities that we're talking about?
Your question is a very valid one. I was trying to make a point at the initial stage. Now, you find so many youths, they tell you, I'm not interested in politics. You cannot really separate politics from, the census. They tell you, I'm not really interested in politics. You say you are not interested in politics, people are there, you say, okay, my constituency is not evenly represented. This is the stage that we need to go out and believe that census is more than head count. Let's go out there because it is also used, the delineation is also used to know how many seats is allocated to a particular place for the National Assembly and the House of Rep. So if we go out now to let them know that 2006 we were 60,000, now we are 80,000, I think we need more representation. Like that, you get more representation, and the youth really need to get involved. Then from there, when the election process comes proper, let the youth also get involved from the grassroots level. So like that, we can go. Politics, that is where they determine what happens here.
Yeah.
So we can't really separate it from the census program.
All right, now with these, all right, I think we have to go on a break now again, and let's go on a break. We come back to dwell more. We're talking about census, the possibility of a census in Nigeria in 2018. And that's supposed to be a year before the general elections in 2019.
Yeah.
We'll talk about all that as we come back. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
All right, you're welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're looking at the planned census for 2018. Of course, it still awaits the president's proclamation. And so we're just discussing this and looking at the possibilities and what may be the challenges and how Nigeria can actually overcome some of those challenges going forward. Our guest in the studio is Babatunde Raimi. He's an economic strategist and, of course, also an author, and he's been looking at this for us. Now, one of our guys behind the camera asked a question some moments back, and was wondering, what about Nigerians in diaspora? Will they be left out, or should they be in any way factored in the scheme of things? How does that affect the total outcome or results of the census?
And in fact, considering that Nigerians are very traveled people,
yes.
Every hour someone is going, every hour someone is coming in.
That I think I heard that question. That question really got me laughing because I have not lost faith in Nigeria. Okay. Do you understand? So things are not as bad as we think. We are not as backward as some people think. The issue is, let me give you a vivid example. I traveled to Republic of Benin recently, and I decided to use my passport. Because we are in the questioning world, at each point I get to, I ask them, why are you stamping, why are you writing this, why are you doing this? When I get to a spot, they say, this is SSS. Why is SSS interested in me going out? Just in case something happened. I got to a place, they said, like immigration, they said, why are you writing? They said, we want to know how many people are leaving Nigeria part-time. So when I was coming back also, and when I got to Cotonou, they say, okay, I have arrived Cotonou. By the time I was coming back, they also want to know how many people are coming into Nigeria part-time. So when you go to the airport also, you know, the immigration people get your details. When you travel by land, the immigration people get your details also. So I think they submit these records finally to the NPC. So who also use this record for, like you rightly said, sir, no pension, no census in the world is 100% perfect. Do you understand?
Yes.
So, but we can have something that will, you know,
An
be
estimate.
acceptable to a large extent. So I think these data are used to correct all this, whatever.
But you just touched on something very important there, cross-border movements and all of that. It is known that there's so many non-Nigerians who come in and who don't go back, but they don't have all of these documents you're talking about, and they cannot be traced. I mean, we've even heard that some of the Boko Haramists
the herdsmen.
are not Nigerians.
The
herdsmen are
yeah.
not Nigerians. So what do we make of that?
Well,
Under the radar.
most
You don't find those ones.
yes, most African countries, their borders are porous. So we need to do something about our borders. It will, to a large extent, to help us curb insecurity. We really need to do something about our border. I said, I decided.
You decided.
To use my
I was
passport.
actually going to underscore that,
So
which
you have
means
the
you have a choice.
you have the powers not to
Not
use
to.
it.
As a matter of fact, I could decide not to use it and I'll still cross.
And you still cross.
Okay.
Which is not supposed to be.
Okay, but there's the issue of the free movement within the ECOWAS countries. Now, Nigeria is the 7th most populous country in the world right now, after China, India, and so on, and breaking down and so on. The projections are that by 2050, if things go on the way it is right now, Nigeria is going to be the 3rd most populous country in the world. How much of a blessing or a curse would that be, considering the way you were talking about the fact that Nigerians, when it comes to planning, we don't plan well, we don't maintain well, and all of that? What would be the implication of all of that?
The same implication it has on China now, that when China sneezes, the world says sorry. It is supposed to be a blessing.
Okay, supposed to be.
It is supposed
I like
to
to
be a blessing.
underline the word supposed to be.
But it's not. Taking, I mean, from what you just said now, we've heard the Agric Minister, Audogbe, say that by 2050, if things don't change, Nigerians may be facing hunger. And how does Census play out in this to ensure that Nigerians don't starve, that Nigerians are not hungry, that there's actually enough food to go around?
That's a very sensitive question. Now, you see, when we all come out to ensure that we get this census thing right, at least to a large extent, and government realizes that maybe 40% of the Nigerian population are youths, jobless, unemployed, because these are part of the demographic information that will be revealed by the census. You know, they can make some form of arrangement with banks, you know, to make funds available. Economies like China, the US economy, they are driven by SMEs. Do you understand? They are driven by SMEs. So by the time they make these funds available to most of these people, they can start something, of course, with monitoring. And by the time they start something, you see that it will begin to directly have positive impact on the economy. It might not be immediate, but in the long run, it will.
All right, there are calls that the census in Nigeria henceforth should be commercialized, where an agency is contracted, an agency handles it instead of the Population Commission being the one to deploy machines, you know, train people and all of that. What's your assessment? How better off would it be if we have a contract or an agency handle that?
Well, I want to say that in Nigeria, it's as if anything that is privatized or commercialized tends to work. I'm just drawing inference from the telecom. I'm drawing, for instance, I used to stay in a place where they bring ambiguous bills for me. I'm talking about PHCN. But I moved to a place where I use prepaid meter, and I'm liking it because the passing to a large extent has been commercialized.
Value
commercial
for money
people are business
and money
people.
for value.
Yes, value for money and money for value. They are business people.
Yes.
So if you give them an assignment, they want to do it to the best of their knowledge, as long as both parties keep the whatever. So it's a welcome development, but it should still be under the tutelage and the supervision of
the NPC. I wonder how familiar you are with the Census Act. Some have been advocating that there's a need to rejig it or to do some kind of, to actually work some aspect of it so that it can actually meet, or deliver on its promise. Which aspect would you want to see change if you're familiar with it?
I'm not too familiar with that, but I'm not really, but I think that in every country, it is foolishness to be doing the same thing all over and expect the same results. We should change with change. There are developments, so if they come, we should go back to our Senate. We think we need to repeal this and add this. We think we need to do this, and so I think if we have not done it for some years, I think it should be looked at again.
Should Nigeria be thinking seriously about a social security number? Would it help in knowing how many Nigerians there are?
There was the issue
like
of
you have in the US, for example.
The NIN by the National Identity Management was supposed to take care of that. But
somehow,
till now we're still waiting.
Well, every country should care about the welfare of the citizens. Every country should care about, and somebody once said that the Africa is so blessed, but the people are too blind to see, and said that corruption is the commander-in-chief of corruption is the commander-in-chief in Africa. So I don't see any reason why, especially our aged people, should be suffering. We have enough resources to take care of our aged, young ones, and social security should be something that should be advocated, something that should be pushed, because we cannot work the same, There comes a time you can't work forever. There will be a transition. Do you understand? You can't support yourself. So it's a thing that I think should be pushed forward, and we should all embrace it and promote it.
All right. Since 2006, in the last census exercise, since that time, have you seen anything Nigeria has learned from the last exercise to see how we can project and be better in the next census we're looking forward to?
I think I had a discussion with a couple of people, and I think more importantly, people might now be willing to come out for the census because they now realize that if you want to be well represented, the national, without purpose, nothing should be done. And the purpose of life is a life of purpose. So they now understand that, why should I ensure that I'm a part of this census? They cry about we are marginalized. Let us know your actual figure. Play your own part and don't assume that they will not do their own at the other side. Play your own part and allow government play their part. And if government don't play their part, you can now criticize constructively within the ambits of the law.
Now, how do you place a figure coming from the NPC boss that they actually need 200 and something billion to carry out the census? But in the 2016 budget, I don't know if this figure is really true. You have 4.4 billion earmarked for the census. I mean, the disparity is amazing. How do you figure that out? Does it give you the impression that really, truly, government is ready to do a head count of Nigerians so that it can actually provide the good life for its citizenry?
With that figure, I don't think personally, I don't think it will fly. With that figure, I don't think it will fly. There will be some form of compromise on one side or the other. However, we have a population of 170 million. Statistically, how many billion will it cost? If you do it per head, so how many billion will it cost to count one person? So just do the mathematics.
Yeah, they'll talk about logistics of getting. There are terrains that you have to get boats involved. There are terrains that you have to hire this and hire.
Places in the Niger Delta, for example, very precarious.
Of course. And then there are so many terrains in the mountainous areas in the southeast that you have to get and climb through before you get into. There are other terrains that it will be helpful to even use helicopters to get there. And all of these things will cost money. So they'll look at they'll see from that perspective. But let us also look at the issue of people traveling, going back to their hometowns to be counted in their hometowns. Why is it important? Because that's the mentality sometimes. People have to travel back to their hometowns to be counted?
We already dealt with that issue. It's political. The same reason why people travel to their hometown during election period. It's very political. You cannot separate politics from pension, from census. Sorry.
Okay, we'll have to go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll thrash this a little more, and then we'll bring you the news update. And right after that, there's a lot more to discuss on TVC Breakfast this morning. Stay with us.